Good morning. We're back.
Happy
We're
Monday.
back, baby.
Good to see Jamie's face live on the screen and in the intro.
I know. Finally fixed it.
I appreciate it, Will.
Yeah, that freelancer was really hard to get a hold of.
Lost his number.
Yeah. Fiverr crash or something. It was weird. But yeah, no, glad we got it. Jamie, it's good to see your face. How we been? How are things?
Great. Was on the road last week at the Focusrite conference. Peter at Focusrite puts on a great show. Brought our CEO Demi out there from Editor DNA2, and we had fun.
A lot of cool companies winning some awards. I saw.
Yeah, shout out to Derek at Nectar winning the People Choice Award for best startup out there. I think it was second for most innovative too. So
yeah,
they brought home the hardware.
That's really the one you want anyway. Like, who cares what the judges think if the popular people's choice is yours? That's got to feel even better.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it sounds really good. I want to go next year for sure. I know, Michael, you've been to Focusrite before, right?
Yeah, 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. So definitely want to make that a GMH destination for the year next year. We'll definitely record live on the scene. But awesome. Well, Jamie, we're glad we're going to jump into a lot of different topics with you today. Just a quick recap, though, from last week. We got a breaking news story, Michael. We had a good time with Brandy, and we got to interview Ryan Bailey, who's the CEO and founder of Track, or TNS, Travel Net. I always get all the GMH, the TNS. We got so many of those little ones out there. But
aren't you in the military? Isn't that your thing?
Yeah, that's my thing. But it's also like there's so many from the military to then apply to hotels and vacation rentals. It just is never ending. So, anyways, moving on. We got to give our friend Paul Stevens a quick shout out. Did an awesome write up about not only just the acquisition of Rented, but of our interview with Ryan. It was awesome. Good time. Can't wait to have him on again for the next one, because I think they're going to be a lot more coming up this year. So yeah, it was a good time. Really good time. Enjoyed it a lot. Let's see. What else do we got? Anyways, Jamie, let's jump in. We got
well, coming out of Focusrite, Jamie, there's always a hot topic at Focusrite. What was everyone talking about this year?
I think it was innovation from the OTAs, and we had Airbnb's winter release. We had Expedia and Hopper CEO up on stage, sort of talking about the next things they were doing. I think interesting was maybe that short-term rentals didn't have as big as a preference, I think, as people said last year. So I wasn't there last year, but what I heard was that the sort of short-term rentals were really the hot topic there, and there was sort of lots of interest and sort of deep dives. And Peter Kern, Expedia, I don't think he mentioned Vrbo once while up on stage. And wow. At Hopper, I think there was a glancing mention of their sort of homes division. And obviously, Madeline did a list, the sort of head of research there for short-term rentals, and she did a great job. Interviewed some key people from Evolve, Vacasa, and Hostfully. So that was great to see them up there, but not as big as a presence as I would have thought for our industry.
It's never been that big. I think the peak was when it was basically all the companies you just mentioned, plus Wyndham when they were still in vacation rentals, plus so it was Wyndham, Vacasa, and Turnkey were all kind of regulars at it, but now it's all Vacasa, and so a smaller footprint. Yeah. None of the big urban guys have ever gone. I don't remember Airbnb ever going either. So yeah, it's definitely skews more hotel than anything. But there's a lot of learnings there as well for short-term rentals. So Airbnb is doing what Airbnb does best, which is continuously dominating the news cycle and what people talk about in the space. So doing it again. The winter release.
Yeah.
Anything jump out here that that you're saying oh no to, or that you're really excited about?
And it seems 100% almost focus on supply. It's like, how do we get more supply into the system? I think, and it's clear that, and they think the only way they grow and for the long term and sort of meet investor expectations there is they've got to add more hosts, they've got to add more properties into the system, and sort of solving for what's maybe keeping hosts from converting, keeping hosts from bringing their properties into their system.
I was going to say, I was thinking the same thing. There's a lot of supply. There's a couple of interesting things that we kind of talked about before with their Airbnb cover or their air cover, and the onboarding, which I found very interesting. But we always jump into that later.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, Airbnb 3 years ago, we were talking about flights and activities and some hotel brand and like some backyard pop-up, you know, structure company that I think Joe Gebbia has now spun off, and that's what he's spending most of his time on.
Yeah.
But it's just still continued to be pretty laser focused on short-term rentals in the niche or in the market that they're good at. You know, for a while they were trying to take on Vrbo, but it seems like they've kind of reverted back to what they do best, which, you know, Vrbo tried to play in Airbnb space for a while, and they reverted back to what they do best as well. So going through a downturn, people hunker down it and trim it down to what they're good at. It's interesting to hear all this stuff about the cleaning fees.
Well, I was going to ask you guys, did you expect more from the winter release outside of the three? I was expecting like when they did their first release, it was a long list of items. Now
108 things that, like,
yeah,
you know,
but like I was expecting like another, and then you see 3 things on the docket, and you're like, that's it, 3 out of the last time you did like 100. So whether it's true or false, it's like, okay, 3 things, great, like.
But when's the last time you've heard of a major release from Vrbo or Booking on like new features in their platform?
True.
Booking released a pretty big one this year, to be fair.
But is it big when it's been the biggest issue for the last 20 years with them?
They like fixed
yes,
something.
because they actually solved it. So like,
did they really solve it?
Kudos to actually getting down and doing it. So
did they really solve it though? That's what I want to know.
Are cleaning fees the biggest issue for Airbnb right now? Maybe not. I don't think so. Personally,
my take though on sort of the releases, and especially when compared to Vrbo and Booking and maybe even Hopper, is Airbnb is the only one trying to organically grow the supply, get new hosts, get new supply into the system, while all the others are trying to get existing supply onto their platform. So they're the only one trying to make the pie bigger, as opposed to just taking a larger piece of that existing pie.
Yeah. Agree. But a lot of that supply can't be used anywhere else. It's just not, it pops on for a special event for this, that, or the other, and it goes away.
Or it converts to you start it yourself, you realize it's way too much work, and then you hire a property manager, and then eventually it gets on the other platforms. Like, and it could be both ways.
Yeah.
Well, so this is the thing that okay, cleaning fees aside. Well, actually, let's jump into cleaning fees, because cleaning fees now being pushed to the front of the listing when you're looking to book, right? That's the big, like, okay, we're going to be more transparent. You're going to see the full price upon scrolling, basically. Great. But people are still booking. I don't see, like, I know there's like, you see TikToks or Instagrams or whatever.
Haters going to hate, right?
but like you see like those stuff like where people are like compare like Airbnb to hotels, or they're like my favorite is like the comedians that make the session of like when you're staying at a hotel not paying a cleaning fee, and then when you're staying at Airbnb or short-term rental paying the cleaning fee, and how it's like you're being watched over by somebody who's like gonna dominate you if you don't fold your towels right before you leave or something like that. So like so there's a lot of joking around it, but our guests really at that point of like, I'm not going to stay at a short-term rental just because there's a $150 cleaning fee. No.
Well, I mean, when's the last time you guys stayed in a hotel?
I'm in one
You
right
get
now.
feed to death. Like resort fee. Well, I don't even plan to use the pool. Like I don't want that resort fee. I'm not going to use any communal spaces. I'm sleeping there and I'm leaving. Of course, all your taxes. They find ways to add more and more fees to hotels too. It's not just a short-term rental thing. So, like, would I prefer as a consumer, what is my all-in price? Yes. Like, when I go to the restaurant or whatever, a shopping mall in Europe, the price is fully loaded. VAT tax is included. If it says 40 pounds, it's 40 pounds, not plus plus.
Are you in Europe?
And that's what Airbnb already does in Europe.
It's better as a consumer. Like I'd rather know my fully loaded price than like be 2 clicks down the way and say, oh man, that's out of my budget now. Because to your point pre-call, Jamie, 15% Airbnb fee added on top of another 15% cleaning fee. Like the price just jumped 30%. That's a little excessive.
Yeah, and so to maybe call out that figure. So when we look at data in the U.S., 15% of the average reservation goes towards the cleaning fee. So that's a significant part. The average hotel room in an urban area costs about 30% more than the average 1-bedroom studio short-term rental. So all of a sudden, with all-in pricing, you take what used to look when a guest was looking as 30% cheaper, you add 15% of the cleaning fee and then 15% for the service fee. All of a sudden, that first sort of glance at a guest of choosing between a hotel and short-term rental, you're essentially on parity on price. And pretty much every survey I look at with guests, it's either the number 1 or number 2 reason why they're choosing a short-term rental over a hotel is the value component, that you're getting similar quality for a cheaper price, and that's why they're choosing. So if all of a sudden you're starting your journey to book and it's not a cheaper price, I think, and there's the chance that all of a sudden people start booking hotels relative to short-term rentals if they're given a choice.
Before you jump in, Michael, sorry, I just want to call out this comment from Tim. This is a good point, and this is something I've actually wanted to see if there's been any success in is, can short-term rental operators include the cleaning fee or embed it into the rate as a lot of other things are. You mark it up a percentage, get rid of the cleaning fee. I know Airbnb allows you to get rid of the service fee, so you can take the whole chunk of it instead of passing partially on to the guest. Stuff like that. Like, do you think that's even sustainable or even a good way for operators to approach it? So that way it minimizes fees and minimizes cost at the end of the day, because they're not going to see their upfront price is going to be their upfront price minus tax, which Airbnb does. So,
and Airbnb is going to incentivize. So, and the whole thing, and Chesky said, if you do all-in pricing, include your cleaning fee in the rate, have the host take care of the service fee, we're going to put you at the highest spot up in the rankings. And if you're still getting a good value rating, like, you are going to be top of the rankings every time. So there's a lot of value for a host that comes into being on the top of the rankings. And if that's a meaningful difference on whether you get booked or not, that could be a big incentive.
I agree. There's huge value to being on the first page. But if someone's searching by price, which a lot of people do, I need 1 room for 3 nights less than $500 a night.
Mm-hmm.
and your rate is fully baked and someone else's isn't, yours isn't going to get shown and theirs is, right?
Well, now we've got the toggle, or we're going to have the toggle starting December. Do you think the toggle changes it, where it sort of forces everyone to be able to see an all-in price if the guest wants to see it?
If the guest wants to see it, I mean, I think it should be standard that all guests get to see it. Like, you can't have a platform where half of your listings are one way and half your listings are another. That doesn't make sense, because now a guest is really confused. Why is this one this way and this one not? That would piss me off even more than having a cleaning fee listed. Like, I want my unit cleaned, so I get why there's a cleaning fee. And whether I stay there one night or 5 nights, it might be a little messier on 5 nights, but I still expect the cleaner to do the same amount of cleaning. I still expect it vacuumed and the surfaces be wiped down and the toilets be cleaned. Like, that's it. It might be a little bit more work taking out an extra bag of trash, but at the end of the day, it should still be about the same amount of work.
Well, and maybe that's part of the backlash is how much cleaning fees have gone up the past few years. And we're showing average cleaning fees up about 30% since 2019. So they go from an average of about $115 to $130 or $150. Like, that's a relatively big increase.
Cleaning companies are they're not keeping their same prices though. That's the thing. If you have outside cleaners, you can't just pay them old rates.
Yeah, so like 2020, 2021, like you had guest expectations for cleaning go way up. So we were in the middle of pandemic, and Airbnb added the additional sort of expectations that go along with cleaning. Cleaning fees went up 10%. This year we've got labor costs that are up 10%, and cleaners have to sort of pass that.
And supplies are more expensive, and gas is more expensive getting out there. Like, it's more expensive. So that's where hotels have the better benefit of, move from one room to the next. It's super easy. And Tim brought up an interesting point too. When I rented out my house during game days, I had a cleaning fee, but I cleaned it myself. Like, there's a big difference between a professional having to hire professionals and, an average Airbnb host just doing it themselves. And that's kind of where price parity can differ enormously. But I mean, this was 2 or 3 years ago when I was doing it, and it's an extra $150 easy for me just to tack on to a stay. And it was standard, like, pure. And it's crazy that you wouldn't add something like that to it. But yeah, it is a challenging one. Airbnb gets knocked all the time for no consistency and no standardization. Well, like, trying to eliminate a cleaning fee kind of fights in the wrong direction of that. Mm-hmm. You want cleaning fee to be cheaper. Cleaning is going to be done worse.
Well, I also think there's a great point to be added to it, is that the expectations for checkout with a $150 cleaning fee are insane these days. Like, people are just asking pretty much for you to clean the whole thing before the cleaner gets there. And then the cleaner basically just tidies up stuff, like finishes a load of laundry. Like, if I'm paying a $150 cleaning fee, I should not be starting my laundry. I shouldn't. I don't do it here at a hotel. I'm at a Ritz-Carlton and I'm going to leave today and I'm not going to touch my bed. Like, it's going to be done and it's going to be ready. Like, that's part of the service. So I think, when you're a host, great, you have cleaners, you're a professional property manager. Don't create this crazy expectation of items for guests to do when they're trying to get, back to the airport or to wherever they're going. That's also a big part of the cleaning fees. I think that's why a lot of people are complaining to Airbnb, is because the expectations or the checkout list is getting longer and longer and the fees are getting higher. So if the fee goes higher,
get more views for complaining more. So I've never had a problem when someone says, like, put your dishes in the dishwasher when you leave. I would do that if I'm staying at a friend's house. I'd do that if I'm staying at my mom's house.
Yeah, but you're not staying at a friend's house or your mom's house. You're at a home.
Sure,
that's supposed to be serviced.
I get it, but like, there's still human decency, right?
But at the end of the day, do you have that every time? Like, do you have like that planned out of like, yeah, if you're not a slob, like you're not going to leave a pile of dishes in the sink, but you know, 1 or 2 dishes, 3 dishes, whatever. At the end of the day, like you're paying a cleaning fee. That's also where it comes from the consumer's point. Like you're paying for it.
The other point to maybe thinking about as we head into 2023 is there's so much more competition for guests than there's ever been. They're going to move those expectations of what a guest needs to do for checkout to being able to be seen before you sort of purchase that home. So all of a sudden we're already seeing occupancies decline, and we saw it again this past month. So as competition for go up, and all of a sudden, like, I see I'm going to get more bookings if I get rid of these terrible lists of that guests need to do, or I see that I'm in my comp set that, okay, all these properties are getting booked solid and they don't have any checklist for guests. And then I do, and maybe that starts to and change host behavior if they want to get this sort of booking activity that others are getting.
I'm not saying eliminate checkout instructions, by the way. I'm saying eliminate the crazy high expectations of doing everything for $150 cleaning fee.
But I've never stayed in a place that has all those like a list of things. And I've stayed in a lot of rentals.
Same.
Have you?
Yeah, but I've seen crazy checkout lists. Like we've had a lot recently
on TikTok, but
that I've stayed at. Like personally,
really?
I've seen it.
Right. Yeah, I've never witnessed it firsthand. But Jamie, to your point, like if I'm a traveler, I think there's going to be more rate compression before there's more like checklist compression, because that's what travelers are looking at. To save $20 on a place if they're the same unit, I'm still happy to load the dishwasher. Like not that big of a deal. But I think once rates get compressed, then it might be these additional like, well, I have to do all these things. Or, I mean, there's even stuff on the front end that gets cumbersome booking, like sending all of your IDs and of like everyone that's staying in the place. I get it. It's a security measure, but it's a barrier to booking in some cases.
Yeah, and I sort of see it over the past 2 years. Hosts have been able to get away with whatever they want in terms of high cleaning fees and absurd checklists, because occupancy's been at record levels. Like guests are going to book whatever they can find. They might leave a relatively low rating, but these properties are still more than likely getting booked and running pretty good numbers. So if there is that sort of pullback, and yes, you can drop rate and sort of expect, and homeowners, short-term rental operators have a relatively lower cost basis than a hotel. They can discount more, sort of still make enough to cover their mortgage, make enough to make a profit on the property. So there's maybe more flexibility there. You can cut your cleaning fee in half and not bat an eye if you're doing it yourself, of which 85% of hosts on Airbnb are individuals or not professionals. So maybe they do have some flexibility on what that cleaning fee is. Maybe they've got a high cleaning fee just to discourage short-term bookings. They don't want 1 or 2 night stays, so they keep their cleaning fee high, so they're only getting sort of longer-term bookings. So there's a lot of potential opportunity there to cut. But then and you can't cut and you've got to look for other opportunities, then it's the other things. Maybe guest expectations. It's changing other parts of your listing.
You mentioned a second ago occupancy compression. What forward-looking predictions for 23?
Yep.
What are rate compressions and occupancy compressions looking like compared to this year or last year?
Yeah. So let's say, and this year occupancy was down about 1.5%. So not terrible, but not off of the highs of last year. rates were up about 6%.
So that's a better balance.
Yeah, and that's this year. So next year we're not expecting rates to go down, but our expectation today is about 2 or 3% rate growth. Inflation about 4 or 5%. So real rates and real rates are going down. Occupancy is probably going to be down probably another 2%. So that's still not down to what we were in 2019. So we were averaging as an industry about 53% occupancy, got up to 59% in 2021. Now we're like 57. We're maybe going to get to 56, 55, but still well above 2019 levels of occupancy.
How does that compare with hotels? Are hotels getting compressed as well, or are they moving the other direction?
Hotels are still moving the other direction. They're just below 2019 levels of occupancy.
Wow.
So they're just on the precipice of recovery. Like demand just got back to 2019 levels. You've seen 3 or 4% more supply. So occupancy is still 3 or 4% below 2019 levels, but they're getting back there. And they're still riding the wave of urban recovery. They dealt with that. They couldn't get rid of all their hotels in urban areas. Short-term rentals, we just dropped 20% of our supply where people weren't traveling to. So that did help the occupancy figures. Yeah.
Well, on that, we talked about Apartments by Marriott last week and how it seems like a much more sustainable and hedge against black swan events where the space can be utilized in different ways.
Yep.
Any thoughts on the Apartments by Marriott, and what do you know about it? What have you heard?
Yeah. So I actually interviewed Jason Fudin on my podcast that AirDNA does, the STR Data Lab. And so he has a brand called Placemaker, which very much will compete with Apartments by Marriott.
Wasn't Placemaker called something else?
Y Hotel.
Y Hotel, yeah.
Yeah. But it's all around the sort of flexible real estate sort of revolution, of which I think short-term rentals is going to be a big part of if you've got a building, and there's no reason why that building should be limited to just long-term rentals. To be able to mix in short-term rentals, midterm stays, and sort of in the goal of maximizing total revenue, maximizing total utilization of that property. And if you're in a market like Boston, has huge tourist demand during the summer, you've got a large sort of influx of people doing internships during the winter. You've got student populations looking for flexibility. And then you can mix sort of short-term stays during the summer, mid to long-term stays in the winter, sort of have a base of sort of 1 to 2 year leases, and use that to really maximize overall uses of that property. Like that's great. I see that as the revolution, and I see Marriott getting into that space is going to be a big part of showing maybe property owners that wouldn't have otherwise thought about it, that, okay, if we can put the Marriott brand on that building, I'm going to feel comfortable with it. And then as downstream effects for companies like Placemaker trying to do it on their own. And I think they're all going to be successful. There's so much opportunity there.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the market leader actually being the first mover as well. You don't see that in too many spaces. So to my knowledge, there's not actually a property yet. There's just the brand. Is that right? Or do you know?
Well, they've got their sort of corporate apartment product in Europe. I've confidentially been having a lot of conversations with people sort of thinking about it sort of in the lead up to the release. So I think they've got a lot of interest from developers looking to build, looking to convert. So I don't suspect it's going to be long till we start seeing a lot of announcements.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, makes sense. They were testing this in other regions first, right?
Yeah.
So, awesome. Well, we have run up on time. Anything else to cover, Will?
Think we hit it all plus some. So pretty good stuff this week, Jamie. It's always great to see you and to dive into the data with
Yeah.
our number one data gangster. But yeah, thanks for shout out to Tim for engaging in the comments on LinkedIn. Appreciate the thoughtfulness behind that. And yeah, we'll see you guys again next week. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the holidays. Take some time off if you guys can, enjoy it. All that good
Will
stuff.
do.
See you guys again next week.